After failing the Gaokao, Carolina became Horace Ning's devoted wife for 40 years. She served her mother-in-law, raised the Ning family's younger siblings, and took care of her children, sacrificing her own health for the appearance of a happy family in the eyes of others. Yet Horace's last words were that she was not allowed to attend his funeral, fearing she would disturb his path to reincarnation. Horus left half of his estate to their children and the other half to the woman he had cherished for half his life. All that was left for Carolina was a brief letter. The admission notice that was taken from you. What I owe you, I have repaid with these 40 years. It turns out that he took Carolina's admission notice to fulfill his beloved's college dream, causing her to waste her life. Carolina collapsed and went mad, crying and questioning why, only to be rejected by her children. You only got the admission notice by a stroke of luck. How can that compare to Mrs. Evelyn's abilities? Moreover, Dad's 40-year love for Evelyn without being together has already given you enough face. If you make Evelyn feel embarrassed again, don't blame us for sending you to the countryside to fend for yourself. Carolina was literally angered to death, and when she opened her eyes again, she found herself back in the year of the Gaokao. At that time, the admission notice was still on its way, and Carolina's life was just beginning. In late autumn of 2018, the solemn hall was filled with flowers for the memorial. People comforted the woman in mourning clothes with a white flower on her head, while also unable to hold back their silence for the youngest leader in the memorial photo. Suddenly, a hoarse voice of anger came from outside the door. I am Horace's wife of 40 years. Why am I not allowed to attend the funeral? Carolina pushed aside the guards and, upon entering the mourning hall and seeing the woman in the center, was instantly frozen in place. Evelyn, why are you here? Why does this woman, who had occupied her husband for 40 years, have to invade even the last bit of space that belonged to her after his death? Before Evelyn could speak, Dominic and his sister Eva rushed out together and pushed Carolina aside. Mom, have you had enough of this? This is Dad's last wish. You have entangled Dad for a lifetime. Do you really not even let him rest in peace after death? Carolina stood there in a daze, while the lawyer beside her sighed and spoke up. Ning, madam, this is indeed Ning Chief's last wish. He explicitly stated that after his death, half of his estate should go to Evelyn Miss, and the other half to his 2 children, and he does not wish for you to appear at his funeral. The lawyer's words struck Carolina's mind like a thunderbolt. Her breathing became rapid, and she stepped forward to grab the lawyer's hand. Impossible! I have been married to Horus for 40 years, taking care of my mother-in-law, supporting his siblings, and raising our children. What have I done wrong? He wouldn't do this to me. The lawyer, seeing this, couldn't bear it and took out an envelope. This is Ning Commander's only thing left for you. Carolina snatched it away, but upon opening it, there was only a short line of text. The admission notice that was taken away. I have paid back over these 40 years. The familiar handwriting struck Carolina like a heavy blow, leaving her dizzy and breathless. 40 years ago, it was precisely because of the absence of this admission notice that she thought she had failed the Gaokao and was forced to marry Horus. Over the years, Evelyn has flaunted her power over her, while her children disdain her lack of education, and even others have taken the opportunity to mock her. After so many years of grievances and injustices, it turns out she could have avoided them. Hatred surged in her heart, and she couldn't help but rush towards Evelyn, only to be pushed back by the ever-watchful Dominic and Eva, the 2 siblings. You still protect her. Do you know that it was she who stole my admission notice back then? Carolina hadn't finished speaking. Dominic interrupted directly. It's just an admission notice. Isn't being the commander's wife for so many years enough for you? Dad and Ms. Evelyn are truly a match made in heaven, and because you interfered, they haven't been together all these years. If you keep causing trouble, be careful, we might throw you out to the countryside to fend for yourself. Her heart felt as if it had been pierced by a sharp sword. Carolina clutched her chest and fell to the ground. Onlookers gasped, but she, through the gaps in the crowd, saw her own 2 children softly comforting the frightened Evelyn, completely oblivious to their biological mother's plight. A suffocating pain struck. Just before being driven to death by anger, Carolina shed tears of resentment and regret. If given another chance, she would surely safeguard her admission notice. not allowing anyone to take away her new life that belongs to her. The bitter juice of pain gradually faded away. It was unclear how long it had been when a blinding light completely awakened Carolina. Her heart was pounding violently in her chest. And before she could gather her thoughts, a familiar voice rang in her ears. Carolina, Evelyn is not well. Did you help her with this task? Carolina instinctively raised her head, but upon seeing the young Horus, she immediately lowered her gaze to her hands. They were thin and long, still covered in dirt, yet lacking the calluses and scars that come from being busy with household chores. The loudspeaker at the village entrance happened to announce the time, December 7th, 1978. She truly had a chance to start over, returning to 40 years ago when the admission notice had not yet been taken away. The dull eyes were suddenly infused with light. After a long time without response, Carolina felt Horus wanting to reach out to her, but she instinctively swatted Horus's hand away. The various grievances from her past were etched deep in Carolina's heart, and the hatred made her respond without thinking. What does Evelyn's poor health have to do with me? Am I the one who caused her poor health? If you care so much, then you go help her. Stop pointing fingers at me here. Horus stood frozen in place. It was the first time he had been rejected by Carolina, and it felt as if something was about to slip away. After throwing down the sentence, Carolina turned around and prepared to leave, but was directly blocked by Horus. Carolina. Without waiting for Horus to finish, Carolina shouted directly, "Help! Someone is being a rogue." Horus was startled and hurriedly reached out to cover Carolina's mouth, but was bitten hard on the hand by Carolina. The villagers who came running saw this and quickly struck Horus with a stick. Taking the opportunity, Carolina dodged away from Horus and ran behind Aunt Wong. It was at this moment that everyone finally saw the two clearly. Carolina. Horus. What are you doing here? Carolina preemptively grabbed Aunt Wong's hand and said with a sense of grievance, "Aunt Wong, Horus said that Evelyn is unwell and forced me to work for Evelyn. I refused, and he threatened to bully me." As Carolina spoke, she lowered her head and whimpered, pretending to be on the verge of tears. Evelyn, who was originally watching the play in the crowd, immediately panicked and said anxiously, "Carolina Lynn, what nonsense are you talking about? Do you dare say that the work I did before wasn't done by me?" Carolina raised her head and directly pressed on with her questioning. Evelyn was momentarily speechless. The current Evelyn was no longer the esteemed university professor everyone praised, but just a sent-down educated youth. The sent-down educated youth still pretended to be delicate and refused to work. Once it was reported, her return to the city would be even further away. Horus did not expect Carolina to directly expose these matters, and immediately glared at her fiercely. "Carolina Lynn, what are you talking about? Clearly, you took the initiative to help, and now you want to throw dirt on Evelyn Comrade, don't you?" Hearing this, Carolina felt even more ironic. "I offered to help. Why is it that I never helped before? But now that you're back, I'm helping? Isn't it because you forced me? You can care about Evelyn all you want. Cancel our marriage. You can care about whoever you want." Seeing the two of them speechless, Carolina felt an overwhelming sense of relief in her heart. In their past lives, they ruined their own lives. In this life, she would definitely not repeat the same mistakes, and it would be best to resolve this marriage directly. Who would have thought that at this moment? A stern reprimand rang out. "What nonsense are you talking about?" Everyone turned to look, and to their surprise, it was Lynn's father and Lynn's mother who had come together. Upon seeing Lynn's father, Horus suddenly gained confidence, and his expression visibly softened. "Uncle Lynn." Lynn's father looked at Horus and nodded, then looked at Carolina with a stern expression. "Horus is a soldier. Do you know how serious the accusation of him being a lecher is? And then there's Evelyn, whose good reputation you've tarnished. I see that your education has gone to the dogs. Hurry up and come back with me." When everyone saw that Lynn's father and Lynn's mother had arrived, they were unwilling to get involved in their family matters and quickly found excuses to leave. Carolina wanted to say something, but when she met Lynn's mother's pleading gaze, she ultimately fell silent. As soon as the crowd dispersed, Lynn's father slapped Carolina hard. "Kneel down. Old Lynn, what are you doing? Lynn's mother quickly stepped in front of her daughter, unable to contain her anger. Horace and Evelyn were also taken aback by Lynn's father's immediate aggression, both looking shocked. "What are you doing?" Lynn's father pointed at Carolina and scolded. "Why don't you listen to what she has to say?" In this day and age, who would admit that their fiancé is being lewd with them? Will she still want to get married then? "I won't marry." Mentioning marrying Horace, Carolina's reaction suddenly became intense. At the beginning, it was agreed that as long as I got into university, I wouldn't have to marry Horace. The college entrance examination has just ended, and the admission notice hasn't even come out yet. On what basis do you all conclude that I won't get in? Nonsense. Lynn's father was filled with rage and wanted to take action, but Lynn's mother quickly reached out to stop him. Horace furrowed his brow. Although he felt that Carolina was being disobedient, she deserved a lesson, but that slap just now was about enough. Any more and he might start to resent him. Thinking of this, she spoke up. "Uncle Lynn, I believe Carolina just misunderstood my relationship with Evelyn. How about I explain it to Carolina properly?" Lynn's father was just about to nod in agreement when Carolina reacted even more intensely. "There's nothing to talk about. I will definitely get into university. I will never marry you. As for you, marry whoever you want." Without waiting for others to react, Carolina ran straight towards home. The momentary recklessness resulted in Lynn's father's punishment. With a creak, Lynn's mother carefully pushed open the door, bringing the prepared herbal juice to Carolina's bedside, her heart aching as she looked at the bruises on her arm. "Caro, what are you being so stubborn about? You know why your dad insisted on having you marry Horace. He also thought that Horace was a good kid." Carolina lay on the bed, speaking in a hoarse voice. "It's precisely because he thinks Horace is so good that he feels I am lacking in every way." Lynn's father grew up together with Ning's father, and their bond was as close as brothers. Later, they both encountered a flash flood. Lynn's father luckily grabbed onto a tree trunk and survived, but Ning's father was left with crippled legs. Having lost Ning's father as a labor force, coupled with the cost of medicine for his legs, the family quickly fell into poverty. Lynn's father was convinced that it was his failure to hold on to Ning's father's hand that caused Ning's family to fall into such a plight, so he took the initiative to propose a marriage between the two families. It was only at the dying request of Lynn's grandfather that Lynn's father agreed that as long as Carolina was admitted to university, this marriage would not need to be fulfilled, and all support would be borne solely by Lynn's father. In her past life, she mistakenly believed she had failed the college entrance examination and had to marry Horace. But after marriage, she witnessed Horace entangled with Evelyn. She cried, made a scene, and even considered divorce. Every time she broke down and suffered, she received only a light remark from Lynn's father. "You failed the college entrance examination. This is your fate." The word fate weighed on Carolina for a lifetime, and it was only before her death that she realized her fate should not have been like this. Heaven gave her a chance to start over, so she was determined to change the outcome of her past life. The next morning, Carolina's injuries had not improved, so she hurried to the post station in the village. Hearing Uncle Zhao say that there were no letters for her, Carolina's face flashed with a hint of disappointment, and she quickly stuffed the pastries in her arms into Uncle Zhao's hands. "Uncle Zhao, could you please keep an eye out for me? If there are any letters for me, please don't give them to anyone but me, okay?" Uncle Zhao, although he didn't understand why, still nodded and agreed. Carolina remembered that the issuance of the admission notices should be coming soon. She was unclear how in her past life Horus had intercepted her admission notice, so she could only take precautions to prevent the events of her previous life from happening again. Having resolved this pressing issue, Carolina let out a sigh of relief. But as she turned around, she unexpectedly encountered Horus standing not far away, watching her. "Carolina, what are you doing here with Uncle Zhao?" Carolina turned her head away and retorted sarcastically, "What I do is none of your business. If you have this much free time, you should be more concerned about whether Evelyn can finish her tasks. Otherwise, if she can't finish, you'll be the one to worry about the reprimand." Horace's expression turned cold, and he directly reprimanded Carolina even more. "Carolina, I have told you many times already, Evelyn's father saved my life. I am just repaying a debt of gratitude. Why can't you understand me? There is nothing inappropriate between her and me. It is absolutely pure. I will definitely marry you when the time comes. Such grandiloquent words. Carolina has heard countless times. In her previous life, her early years were bound by the kindness of Lin's father, forced to obey arrangements to marry, while her later years were shackled by Horace's favor. Enduring Evelyn's abuse, she had to endure and yield, until she was driven to death by anger. But what do I owe her? Carolina looked into Horace's eyes. What? Do I owe Evelyn's father a life? The favor isn't something I benefited from, yet when it comes time to repay, they all remember me. Horace, stop saying those ill-fated words about marrying me. I can get into university. As for how you and Evelyn love each other, that's your business. After throwing down this remark, Carolina left without looking back. Horace watched Carolina's retreating figure, a strange feeling passing through his heart. The village wasn't large, and with Carolina's attitude changing so drastically, it quickly spread throughout the entire village. Everyone knows that Lin's daughter now hates Ning's boy intensely. Meanwhile, there are discussions about Evelyn and Horace's relationship. The villagers neither particularly like nor dislike the educated youth. It's just that Evelyn usually avoids working and even pushes her tasks onto me, inevitably leaving a bad impression on everyone. Now entangled with someone who is already engaged, rumors about Evelyn have quietly spread. Despite Evelyn's repeated explanations, everyone can see Horace's special treatment of her, and naturally, they are unwilling to believe it. Carolina was not paying attention to these matters. The closer the date of the admission notice approached, the more vigilant she had to become. But she did not expect that the first person to find her would not be Horace, but Evelyn. Carolina, I have something to tell you. Seeing Evelyn looking troubled, Carolina sneered. Why didn't you let Horace come find me? Is he really going to ignore the daughter of the person who saved his life? Having spent decades together in a past life, Carolina naturally understood what kind of person Evelyn was. She was adept at flattering and scheming, hiding behind the crowd to manipulate others to achieve her own ends. It was precisely because of this that in her past life Carolina was targeted and mocked countless times. She knew very well that it was Evelyn who was causing trouble, yet it was always difficult for her to find evidence. On the contrary, she would be reprimanded by Horace, who arrived at the sound. This was the first time that Evelyn actively appeared in front of her. Hearing Carolina's words, Evelyn's expression became even worse. Yet she still forced herself to say, I am innocent with Horace. Can you help us clarify that it was you and Horace who were having a quarrel? Seeing Carolina remain indifferent, Evelyn gritted her teeth and asked, Carolina, you don't really think that Horace has fallen for you just because you're throwing a little tantrum, do you? If you keep this up, the gains won't outweigh the losses. Carolina brushed the dust off her clothes and said disdainfully, Loss? If it means keeping Horace far away from me, I couldn't ask for more. Unexpectedly, upon hearing this, Evelyn let out a strange laugh and spoke, Is that so? In the next moment, she lunged directly at Carolina, who instinctively dodged, but Evelyn lost her balance and fell straight down the nearby slope. Ah! Evelyn! A scream came from the side. Carolina turned to look, just in time to meet Horace's furious gaze. Horace originally wanted to have a good talk with Carolina, but unexpectedly, he arrived just in time to see Carolina push Evelyn down. He thought that Carolina really didn't care about him to say such things, but in reality, she was even more obsessive and cruel. Without waiting for Carolina to speak, Horace hurriedly ran down and picked up Evelyn. Carolina was just about to explain, but was directly knocked aside by Horace holding Evelyn. Have you had enough of this yet? Carolina, this is our matter. Why do you involve Evelyn? The inexplicable hat was placed on her head, and Carolina's expression turned grim. Horace, I didn't push her. She fell on her own. I don't want to hear your explanation right now. Horace interrupted Carolina's words directly, watching her warily. But if anything happens to Evelyn, I will not let you off. After saying this, Horace hurriedly took Evelyn away, leaving Carolina alone in place, seething with anger. But this pent-up frustration hadn't lasted long. Carolina suddenly remembered that she had something important to do, and hurried off to the small grove on the other side. After seeing a middle-aged man lying on the ground beside a hidden thicket, Carolina finally let out a sigh of relief. In her past life, she had accidentally saved a fainted middle-aged man while working here. She thought it was just a small act of kindness. But unexpectedly, this man was called Bruno Song, a person of great importance in the military. Horus later rose through the ranks, largely thanks to Bruno. This time, by saving Bruno, she not only hoped to prevent such a stalwart soldier from dying unexpectedly but also aimed to hinder Horus's smooth rise in rank in the future. Thinking of this, Carolina applied some first aid measures to him as if in a past life. Soon, the man slowly regained consciousness and was even more grateful after learning that Carolina had saved him. "Little girl, since it was you who saved me, if there's anything I can help with, please speak up quickly. What's your name?" Carolina was first taken aback, then smiled and said, "Carolina. But there's no need for help. It was just a small effort." After leaving this sentence, Carolina turned and left directly. She believed that with Bruno's abilities, he would definitely find out about Horus. And when that time came, if Horus wanted things to go as smoothly as in the past life, it would be nothing but a dream. Having resolved a pressing matter, Carolina continued on her way to the post station. Upon learning that she had her own letters, Carolina was even more excited. "Really? Uncle Zhao, what about my things?" She had thought she could get them immediately, but unexpectedly, Uncle Zhao spoke up directly. "Aren't your things taken by your dad?" Hearing this, Carolina felt an inexplicable unease in her heart. She hurried back home, only to find that Ning's family was all at home. Carolina stood frozen in place, frowning. "Why are you all here?" Lin's father took a deep drag from his pipe, his face serious as he spoke. "Why?" "Naturally, we are discussing your marriage to Horus." Hearing the words marriage, Carolina felt her mind go blank for a moment. Then she rushed in front of Lin's father and said, "No! I clearly fulfilled my promise and got into university. How can you still force me to marry Horus?" "Dad, Uncle Zhao said you took my letters. Give them back to me. That is my admission notice." Lin's father shoved Carolina away, his face stern and displeased. "There is no such thing. Just go ahead and marry Horus." Carolina was stunned for a moment. An absurd thought flashed through her mind, and she trembled as she asked, "Dad, what do you mean there is no such thing?" "That is my admission notice. It belongs to me. You promised Grandpa that as long as I got into university, you wouldn't force me to marry Horus." "University. University." Lin's father suddenly stood up violently, angry. "I think you've just gotten your head muddled from studying too much. What's so good about university? A girl still has to get married. Horus, everything is going smoothly in the army now, and your future is limitless. Who forced you to get married? But why did you push Evelyn down the slope out of resentment? Do you know this is a matter of life and death? You could go to jail for this." Carolina was engulfed in blood, as if it were boiling. She slowly turned her head and fixed her gaze on the silent Horus. "So Horus, you are the one behind this, right? You framed me and forced me to marry you. So who is the admission notice for? Are you preparing to let your good sister Evelyn replace me in university?" Horus was even angrier upon hearing this. It was clearly Carolina who had done wrong. He had kindly negotiated terms to prevent her from going to jail. Yet Carolina still maliciously accused Evelyn. Thinking of this, Horus's expression changed as he scolded, "Carolina, how many times do I have to say it? I am completely innocent with Evelyn. Stop talking nonsense here. It was you who pushed Evelyn down the hill. This is what you should give Evelyn as compensation. You can't go to university. Isn't it better to give the opportunity to someone else? What more do you want after I've already agreed to marry you?" Almost as soon as the words left his mouth, Carolina raised her hand and slapped Horus. "Who said I wanted to marry you?" Carolina trembled all over, her gaze towards Horus filled with hatred. "I can go to university, have my own brand new life and a perfect future. What right do you have to decide for me?" Everyone present was taken aback, not expecting Carolina to suddenly strike. Even Horus, who always prided himself on understanding Carolina, was momentarily at a loss for words, staring blankly into Carolina's hateful gaze. This was Horace's first realization that Carolina was looking at herself with a lost joy, even carrying a hint of resentment. But the moment the thought arose, it was directly dismissed by Horace. How could that be? Carolina could not possibly resent him. Ning was the first to react, stepping forward to examine Horace's face. And then she screamed, "Is this the good daughter raised by your Lin family? Don't forget that it was you who caused my old Ning to lose his legs and then took the initiative to propose a marriage. Now that my son is doing well, he gets beaten by your daughter. Is it really going to turn the world upside down in the future?" Without waiting for Lin's father to speak, Carolina interjected, "Right. So you'd better advise your son not to marry me. Otherwise, he ruined my chance to go to university, and the Ning family can forget about having it easy. Let's see who can outdo whom." Ning's mother, furious, rushed forward wanting to tear into Carolina, but Horace directly stood in front of Ning's mother, his expression restrained. "Mom, this is between me and Carolina. You don't need to interfere. Moreover, I will definitely marry Carolina." Horace's determined attitude left Ning's mother speechless for a moment, and Lin's father directly spoke up. "Carolina, have you studied until you're in a dog's belly? Horace is so good to you. What exactly are you making a fuss about? Let me ask you again, are you going to marry or not?" "No, I won't." Carolina wiped away her tears and looked around at everyone in the room, saying, "I must go to university. Even if I die, I will not marry Horace." Lin's father was even more infuriated by these words, directly stepping forward to grab Carolina. His hands, like a vice, gripped Carolina with painful intensity. She struggled desperately, but was still forcefully pushed into the room. Bang! The door was slammed shut, and Carolina instinctively rushed to the door, wanting to open it, only to find it locked from the outside. No matter how hard she struggled, the door remained immovable. "Dad, what are you doing? Let me out. I don't want to get married. I want to study." The crisp sound of keys clashing rang out as Lin's father said heavily, "This matter is not up to you. Wait until you have thought it through before talking about leaving the room." Carolina did not expect Lin's father to be so resolute. She pounded on the door with all her might, constantly pleading for him to let her out. After a long silence without a response from Lin's father, Carolina gritted her teeth and said, "Horace, you have to let my dad take me out. I will never marry you. If you force me, don't blame me for taking you down with me." The resolute words shocked everyone outside the door. Ning scolded Carolina harshly, but unexpectedly, Horace, who had always been vague about marriage, was surprisingly firm this time. "You have to marry, whether you want to or not. That admission notice is what you owe Evelyn. Once Evelyn goes to university, I will naturally persuade Uncle Lin to let you out." After leaving this sentence, Horace looked deeply at the tightly closed door, suppressing his unease as he left Lin's house with Ning's mother. Carolina refused to accept her fate, cursing Horace like a madwoman, but until the outside fell silent again, no one paid her any attention. After shouting for so long, Carolina weakened and knelt on the ground. Memories of her past life surfaced in her mind. She had worked so hard, exhausting all her thoughts to change the outcome of her previous life. Yet she never expected that the one who would hurt her the most would be her closest family. In this life, her admission notice was taken away by Lin's father. What about in her past life? Did her biological parents truly not know that Evelyn's admission notice was hers? Or perhaps, it was originally given away by them. After all, ever since the engagement was set, their greatest hope was that Carolina could marry Horace. In this life, clearly she gave Horace and Evelyn so many chances to be together. Yet Horace still chose to bind her with his own later years for the sake of Evelyn. Powerless and filled with hatred, Carolina was full of reluctance. Yet in that moment, she fell into confusion. This time, Lin's father was determined to teach Carolina a lesson, locking her in the room for 3 consecutive days without food or water, forcing Carolina to go hungry for a full 3 days and nights. Until the night of the 4th day, Carolina lay weakly in bed, and a faint sound, long forgotten, came from the door. Lynn's mother walked in with food and soup, looking at Carolina with deep concern. Carolina, you need to apologize to your dad. Why must I be so stubborn? Carolina grasped Lynn's mother's hand tightly, pleading, Mom, I don't want to get married. I want to study. Please persuade Dad for me, okay? He wants to repay a debt of gratitude. I can earn money for the Ning family in the future, but please don't give my admission notice to someone else. Lynn's mother gently pushed Carolina's hand away, avoiding her gaze. The admission notice. Your dad has already given it to Evelyn. He said it was to compensate for you pushing Evelyn, and now the whole village knows that your dad accepted the bride price from the Ning family. If you don't marry over, your dad will be ridiculed by everyone. Carolina stood frozen in place, trembling as she asked, Mom, are you and Dad forcing me? Knowing full well that I wouldn't just stand by and watch you both be criticized by everyone, so you accepted the bride price and spread it around, forcing me to marry Horus? Why? Aren't I your biological daughter? Why do you have to pressure me for a stranger? Do you have to push me to the brink of death to be satisfied? Hearing this, Lynn's mother hurriedly grabbed Carolina's hand and said repeatedly, Carolina, how could Mom and Dad want to drive you to death? Your dad is not wrong. A girl is always meant to get married. Horus is a good kid. He won't mistreat you. Can you trust your parents just this once? Won't mistreat? In her past life, Horus indeed did not mistreat her. He gave her all the dignity she deserved, to the point where she questioned his relationship with Evelyn countless times, ultimately believing it was just her overthinking. But obviously, my parents never considered that the storms and hardships that Horus shielded her from were burdens she should never have to bear. However, it was clear that Carolina couldn't express any of these feelings. Seeing that Carolina was silent, Lynn's mother continued to speak, and that harsh remark you made that day. Even Ning's family wouldn't let Horus marry you. Even Ning's 2 children cried and protested, unwilling to let you through the door. It was Horus who stopped everyone, saying he would only marry you in this lifetime. Carolina, that kid Horus is truly sincere towards you. You should cherish it well. Holding on to the last flicker of hope, Carolina asked, Mom, have you ever thought about how Ning's family doesn't welcome me? Will I really have a good life if I marry into that family? Do you and Dad really have to pressure me like this? Lynn's mother paused for a moment, then pressed Carolina's hand and said, It will happen. Wasn't Mom also not favored back then? Yet she has managed well all these years. Carolina, it will be okay. The faint glow of the fire was completely extinguished, and Carolina felt as if her entire being had been drained of its soul. She heard herself respond softly with her head down. It's all up to you and Dad. Hearing this, Lynn's mother's face immediately lit up with joy, and she said repeatedly, Good, good, good. I'll go tell your dad right now. Let him release you so you can properly prepare for your engagement. But just as she was about to leave the room, Lynn's mother hesitated and turned back. Carolina, are you really willing to marry Horus and not go to university? Carolina said nothing, only silently ate the food that was served. Lynn's father initially couldn't believe that his daughter had agreed so readily. As Carolina looked obedient, he still believed in her. How many times have I said, what use is it for a young lady to read so many books? Marry well. Horus will not treat you poorly. Perhaps it was because of Carolina's obedience that the usually stern Lynn's father showed a rare hint of kindness. But Carolina knew better than anyone that this was all an illusion. She didn't know what Lynn's father had said to the others in the village, but the villagers' gazes on her grew increasingly intense. Even when she occasionally went to the ox cart, she would be hurriedly chased away. Your dad said that we absolutely cannot take you away. Otherwise, if anything happens to you, he would have to come looking for us. The village is far from the town, and usually, they rely on the village's ox cart to go out. Lynn's father was clearly determined to marry Carolina to Horus. Even taking precautions against her escaping, Carolina had just turned around when she unexpectedly found Evelyn blocking her way. Why are you running away like a stray dog? All dejected? Carolina turned around and stared at Evelyn and said, The world has really changed. Thieves can now appear openly on the main road. Evelyn, Do you think just because you took my admission notice everything will be fine? Evelyn's expression changed slightly, but she stubbornly replied, Carolina, do you think your words can scare me? Let me tell you, Horus has promised me that he will keep a close watch on you. Do you think he married you for any other reason? It's naturally to monitor you better. You can't leave the village, and the admission notice is in my hands. You should just obediently watch me study at this university. Such arrogant words sounded somewhat blusterous to Carolina. So why are you showing off in front of me now? Could it be that Horus gave you my admission notice but also made some demands? Do you feel that Horus has lost control and hurried over to me to sow discord? Well, after all, I will be married to Horus in the future. Who knows? One day a whisper in his ear might make him impulsively report you. Evelyn's face changed dramatically, and her gaze towards Carolina was filled with a hint of hatred. Horus would never. He promised to take care of me for a lifetime. He married you just to keep an eye on you. I scoffed and said sarcastically, then what are you in such a hurry for? Evelyn was left speechless and, in her anger, simply ran away. Carolina stood in place, closed her eyes, and said, since you're already here, why hide? Horus stepped out from behind a nearby tree and said seriously to Carolina, you shouldn't say those things to Evelyn. I won't let you hinder her from attending university, but I promise, after we get married, nothing will be unfair to you. Horus didn't understand why his always trusting Carolina was now so upset with him over Evelyn. Carolina was somewhat impatient. Horus, are you done pretending? As long as you are not here, I won't suffer any grievances. Looking at Carolina's indifferent expression, Horus couldn't help but clench his fists, and the words he had buried in his heart for so long slipped out. Are you really so unwilling to marry me? Carolina thought that perhaps she was going mad, as she could hear a hint of grievance in his words. She smiled sarcastically and looked at Horus. What does it matter whether I want to or not? If I don't want to, will you go tell my dad that we won't get married? Clearly, it was a question she wanted to ask. But at the moment she heard it, Horus actually regretted asking. Horus pressed down the strange feelings in his heart, walked over to try to grasp Carolina's hand, but she dodged away. You're not married yet. Don't ruin your reputation with all this pulling and tugging. The bitterness in her heart grew stronger. Horus couldn't help but ask aloud, Carolina, what's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly treating me this way? Don't you like me? Carolina looked up at Horus, impatiently saying, so what? Just because I liked you once, does that mean I can't stop liking you? Or do I have to be your ever-ready follower, a slave at your beck and call? Wake up. There are no slaves in the new China. Marriage is what you want to get into. So don't say these irrelevant things now. If you are unwilling, then let's break off the engagement. Horus was at a loss for words for a moment, only able to keep reassuring himself that everything would be fine after they got married. If you still mind my relationship with Evelyn, I will clarify my relationship with her to you after we get married. No need, Carolina said coldly. I don't care. You can be with whoever you want. Horus looked at Carolina's distant demeanor, a sense of inexplicable panic rising in his heart. He naturally understood that Carolina liked him. Otherwise, she wouldn't have agreed to his requests time and again. It was just that Carolina's abrupt change made him realize that compared to studying, that fondness was surprisingly fragile. He rarely felt a tinge of reluctance. The marriage that once displeased him now made him feel a sense of gratitude. The outside world is not so easy to navigate. He would strive to provide Carolina with a good life. So that admission notice was the best choice for Evelyn. The wedding was originally scheduled for a month later, but unexpectedly Horus had to return to the army early due to military matters. The marriage application had not yet been approved, but both families decided to proceed with the wedding arrangements. Throughout the wedding preparations, Carolina was not very concerned, yet Horus seemed to take it seriously, insisting on dragging Carolina to choose every single item to be used. The villagers watched and couldn't help but sigh that Carolina married a good man. However, Carolina seemed tired of these comments and couldn't help but speak up. Can you give me some personal space? I'm not going to run away. Horus was stunned in place, and after a while, he managed to suppress the bitterness in his heart and said, in your view, Is my taking you to see the decorations for our new home just a way to monitor you? Then what else is there? Carolina glared at Horace, disgusted. Are you really going to say that you genuinely want to marry me and live together? Horace, now that it's just the two of us, there's no need to pretend and deceive here. An indescribable pain spread from her heart. She only wanted a bit more time together. But upon hearing Carolina's words, Horace loosened his grip and stubbornly said, "You're not wrong. I am just pretending. But even if it's just pretending, you have to stay with me for a lifetime. Carolina, don't think you can run away." After leaving this sentence, Horace hurried away like a deserter. Since that day, Horace had not met with Carolina for several days. Until the day of the wedding, Carolina put on her new dress, and as soon as the door opened, she ran into Horace, who had come to escort her. Seeing the two newcomers not speaking, the villagers all thought they were shy and began to joke to lighten the atmosphere, bowing, serving tea. After the ceremony, everyone took their seats and raised their glasses to congratulate the joyous occasion. Carolina also rarely showed a good expression, standing next to Horace and continuously pouring wine for him. Lynn's father also drank too much, grabbing Horace's shoulder and advising him, "I only have this one daughter. You must take good care of her." Horace, half drunk, nodded slightly, perhaps because of the alcohol. His gaze towards Carolina was tinged with a hint of seductive affection. But the next moment, the words he uttered shattered the illusion. "Dad, don't worry. As long as Carolina doesn't target Evelyn, I will be good to her." No one thought this was wrong. On the contrary, Lynn's father shouted for Carolina to stop being jealous. Carolina nodded without refuting, simply pouring them drinks incessantly. At midnight, many people returned home drunk. Lynn's mother helped the drunken Lynn's father home, while Carolina supported the inebriated Horace to their room, not forgetting to shoo away the concerned Ning's mother and her companions. The smell of alcohol was overwhelming. As Carolina was about to leave, she was suddenly pulled into Horace's embrace. "Carolina, where are you going?" Seeing that she couldn't break free, Carolina let out a sigh as if deflated. "I'll go get you a warm towel and bring you a glass of water. Now that we're married, what else do you want to do?" Just as Carolina was about to forcibly pull away Horace's hand, she suddenly heard him ask, "Yes, we're married, and that's good enough. Carolina, do you like me?" The expectation in his words left Carolina silent for a long time before she finally spoke. "I do." The light words instantly calmed Horace down. He released his grip, closed his eyes tightly, yet still murmured for Carolina to be careful, and Carolina stood by the bed, only speaking after the sound had faded. But that was a matter of a past life. "Horace, let's not meet again in this life." She wiped her hands that had been touched by Horace and then turned away without hesitation. The village was eerily silent at night, the sound of insects incessantly buzzing, as terrifying and urgent as the call of fate. She ran, drenched in sweat, every rustle of the wind making her hold her breath in fear. The cold wind rushed into her neck, bringing waves of tearing pain to her chest. Finally, Carolina arrived at the grass pile next to Lynn's house, where she found the burden she had hidden for so long. At the moment she saw the burden, Carolina let out a sigh of relief. Just as she was about to leave with it on her back, a voice suddenly came from behind her. "Carolina." Carolina stiffly turned around, facing the red-eyed Lynn's mother. "Mom." The mother and daughter stared at each other for a long time, and in the end, it was Carolina who first set down her burden, closed her eyes, and said, "Even if you have someone take me back this time, next time, or the time after that, no matter how long I'm locked up or how many days I go hungry, I will never give up trying to escape. My life shouldn't be confined here. I should go see a broader world and realize my value. Dad always says that getting married is my destiny, but I refuse to accept that." Carolina had no hope that Lynn's mother would let her off the hook. She knew better than anyone how soft Lynn's mother was and how afraid she was to defy Lynn's father's orders. She didn't blame her mother. She only hated herself for not being more considerate. But suddenly, a heavy weight settled on her shoulders. Carolina looked up and unexpectedly met Lynn's mother's tear-filled gaze. Realizing that Lynn's mother had placed the burden back on Carolina's shoulders, "Mom hasn't read much," Unlike you and your dad. So she doesn't understand fate and what it means. After listening to your dad for so many years, it's time to hear something else. Today is just the day my daughter got married. I'm just wandering around. Carolina felt a pang in her heart and instinctively grabbed Lynn's mother's hand. Mom. Lynn's mother reached out and grasped Carolina's hand, gently asking, have you arranged everything? The admission notice. Without waiting for Lynn's mother to ask more, Carolina nodded. Everything is arranged. Don't worry, Mom. Once I handle everything, I will definitely come back to pick you up. She wanted to spend a little more time with Lynn's mother, but Lynn's mother pushed her away. All right, it's getting late. Hurry up and go. If we wait any longer, the Ning family might find out. Carolina understood this as well. Holding back her tears, she finally hugged Lynn's mother, then steeled herself and turned away, running down the other path without looking back. She ran for a long time, finally stopping when she saw a small car. The car door opened, revealing a handsome young face. Seeing Carolina stunned, Cashin stepped aside and spoke. Lynn, classmate. My name is Cashin. Bruno Song is my dad. Don't worry. My dad has arranged everything, and he will definitely take you out safely. Cashin. This name Carolina remembered. In her past life, Horus's archenemy, who was always at odds with Horus in the military. But Carolina remembered that when she was kidnapped along with Evelyn, Horus chose to save Evelyn and abandoned her. It was Cashin who risked his life to save her. Everyone in her past life said she was lucky to marry Horus and live a life of luxury without worries. Only Cashin mocked Horus for not knowing the blessings he had. Carolina never expected that she would encounter Cashin so early in her life. Comrade Song. Thank you for your trouble. At just over 20 years old, Cashin felt a bit embarrassed upon hearing this. It's nothing. You saved my dad, so you are my benefactor. This is your train ticket to the north, and regarding the school, I have already sent someone to inform them. That admission notice has already been voided. Someone will take you to register when you arrive at the school. Is there anything else I can do? Just let me know. Carolina stared at the train ticket to Guangdong, pondering for a long time before mustering the courage to speak. Actually, there is one thing I would like to trouble you with. The car sped past, facing the faint light of dawn, with the rising sun. As the dawn broke, the damp, cold wind flowed through the window, causing the decorative double happiness symbol behind the door to rustle. The fragmented sounds, accompanied by the chill, stirred the hungover Horus awake. He instinctively reached out to his side, but his touch was met with coldness. In almost an instant, his chaotic consciousness suddenly cleared, and he sat up with a start. The pain from his hangover made Horus unable to help but rub his forehead. He squinted at the bedside, finding no water cup or basin. Everything in the room was as usual. If it weren't for the character happy on the wall behind the door and the new clothes he was wearing, he might have thought yesterday's wedding was just a dream. But where is Carolina? No dream at all. A sudden wave of anxiety surged in his heart. Ignoring his headache, Horus forced himself to get up and open the door. In the hall, kitchen, guest room, and even around, Horus searched everywhere. But no matter how hard he looked, he could not see Carolina's figure. Seeing Horus's hurried appearance, Ning's mother asked curiously, Horus, what are you looking for? Horus instinctively looked at Ning's mother, then hurriedly took 3 steps and 2 strides to her side and asked, Mom, have you seen Carolina? Ning's mother pouted and said impatiently, how could I possibly see her? Who knows? Maybe the new daughter-in-law is preparing breakfast early to show respect to her mother-in-law. If you ask me, women should be properly disciplined. Before Ning's mother finished speaking, Horus entered the room again, waking up Sam and Luna who were still asleep. Sam, Luna, have you seen your sister-in-law? The 2 children exchanged glances and shook their heads, while Ning's mother, who followed in, also sensed something was off. Horus, what do you mean by that? Isn't Carolina with you? Could it be that she ran away? Mom! Horus suddenly shouted loudly, looking darkly at Ning's mother. Carolina, she won't run. Maybe I just neglected her because I got drunk yesterday, and she went back to Lynn home out of spite. I will go find her right now. That said, the empty void in Horace's heart inexplicably widened a little. He grew up with Carolina and believed he understood her best. Carolina was most sentimental and did not want others to worry about her. She could never bring herself to quietly disappear. But when Horace hurriedly arrived at Lynn's home to apologize to Lynn's father, he was met with the bewildered gaze of Lynn's father. "Horace, what do you mean by that? What do you mean sorry, when everything was fine?" Horace stood there in shock, unable to help but ask, "Dad, Carolina hasn't come back, has she?" Bang! A loud crash sounded from behind, as Lynn's mother dropped the basin of water on the ground, and then rushed directly to Horace, demanding to know, "Horace, what do you mean by that? Why did Carolina come back? Isn't she supposed to be at your Ning family's house? Or did you do something to force Carolina away?" Hearing this, Lynn's father immediately became agitated. "Horace, you quickly explain what exactly is going on?" Soon, the news of Carolina's disappearance spread throughout the village. The villagers all helped search for Carolina, but despite scouring the entire village, they could not find any trace of her. Clearly, her clothes, personal belongings, and even the taken admission notice were all there. Yet Carolina seemed to have vanished without a trace. Married yesterday, and today she is gone. Ning's mother was naturally unhappy and shouted for Lynn's father to give an explanation. But Lynn's father, who had always been tolerant of Ning's mother, lost his usual calmness at that moment, convinced that Ning's family must have done something to cause the usually obedient Carolina to disappear without reason. The two families argued endlessly, and Horace, caught in the middle, had no mind to mediate. The village is remote. Walking on foot, one cannot know how long it will take to leave, and the only means of transportation is the ox cart. He worried that Carolina might encounter misfortune, searching carefully all around, and finally discovered the tracks of the small cart on a narrow path. The tracks led to the station, and Horace, leveraging a bit of his connections from the army, pleaded everywhere to find Carolina's whereabouts. Without a photo, Horace could only rely on verbal descriptions, staying at the station for 7 days asking around. Finally, on the 8th day, a homeless man staying by the station told Horace, "The girl you mentioned is quite beautiful, with a mole at the corner of her eye. On the early morning 8 days ago, she got on the train with a young guy, and they looked like a loving couple." Before the homeless man could finish his words, Horace angrily retorted, "What nonsense are you talking about? Carolina would never leave with someone else. Stop slandering her here. If I hear you say that again, watch out or I'll break your legs." After saying this, Horace fled in embarrassment, until Horace locked himself in the room. The words of the drifter he had heard before leaving still echoed in his mind. "Young man, the fruit that is picked too early is not sweet. The girl has someone she likes. She would rather run away to avoid you. So why are you still clinging to her?" Horace wanted to explain that he was not being clingy. It was Carolina who liked him first. On the day of the wedding, Carolina showed no signs of anything unusual, submissively dressed up, obediently following behind him, like a considerate wife pouring wine for him, accepting all the congratulations from everyone together. But he forgot one thing. Carolina is not that docile by nature. He was overwhelmed with joy, and after getting drunk, when he heard Carolina wanted to help him get water, he naively thought they could be fine. Horace thought Carolina had come to terms with it. How happy he was then, and now knowing the truth, he is just as angry. Angry that Carolina would change her mind. Angry at himself for being deceived by such poor acting. He wanted to find Carolina and question her why. If she didn't want to marry him, she wouldn't just say so properly. But he suddenly remembered. Carolina had said it more than once, but he thought it was just a jealous outburst. As long as they got married, it would be fine. Horace never expected that Carolina would choose to run away from the wedding. He lay in bed, feeling a dull pain at his temples. The chaotic thoughts troubled Horace, and he closed his eyes, forcing himself to sleep. For 3 consecutive days, Horace neither ate nor drank, locking himself in his room. Ning and the family were deeply worried, but no matter how they knocked and pleaded, Horace refused to open the door. In utter helplessness, Ning could only call for Evelyn. Evelyn has always hated being a backup. But she is alone and helpless in the village. If Horus really ignores her, her future days will be even harder. After some contemplation, Evelyn decided to follow her mother. Today, she deliberately dressed up carefully, and the sound of her knocking on the door carried a hint of pity. Horus, it's Evelyn. I know you're worried about Carolina, but you can't just lock yourself away and not eat. Can you open the door? Evelyn waited for a long time, but Horus had no reaction. Noticing Ning's blaming gaze, Evelyn couldn't help but bite her lip, her resentment towards Carolina deepening. It's all Carolina's fault. If it weren't for her causing such a scene, she wouldn't have been neglected by Horus and wouldn't have been suspected by the villagers of doing something. Seeing that Horus really wasn't going to pay her any attention, Evelyn let out a deep breath and said, Horus, it's time to report to the university. I'm a bit scared alone. Can you take me? Mentioning the university, the door was suddenly flung open. Horus's eyes were dark. He stared at Evelyn for a long time before finally speaking. Okay. Hearing Horus's agreement, Evelyn was overjoyed and immediately grabbed Horus's arm, saying happily, Really? Horus, you're so nice. Looking at the hand gripping his arm, Horus felt a bit annoyed for the first time. He uncontrollably recalled the rumors in the village, and couldn't help but think that without Evelyn, would Carolina have escaped? But soon this thought was pushed deep down. As Evelyn was the daughter of his savior, it was Carolina who should not hold a grudge. It had nothing to do with Evelyn. Moreover, at the university, perhaps Carolina will also be there. Clang, 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 a train whistle sounded, and Carolina, who was originally in a deep sleep, was suddenly awakened. She looked out at the somewhat desolate scenery, clutching the burden in her arms. The 3 days and nights on the train were not easy, and with it being her first time traveling far, her nerves were even more tightly wound and unable to relax. On the day she escaped the village, Cashin intended to take her directly to the university registration office, but Carolina suddenly changed her mind. Although Guangdong University is good, it is ultimately not the university she most wanted to attend. Moreover, she left in a hurry, only bringing a few personal clothes and documents, and she had little money on her, with no arrangements for tuition or living expenses. Cashin and his son had already helped her a lot. She felt unworthy of receiving more. Furthermore, whether it was Lin's father, Lin's mother, or Horus, everyone knew she had been accepted to Guangdong University. When the time comes to Guangdong to find her, even if she can hide for a moment, she cannot hide for a lifetime. By then, there will likely be no second Cashin who can rescue her. Most importantly, according to her memories from her past life, the days of reform and opening up will soon arrive. Rather than heading north to study, it would be better for her to first head south to try her hand at business, using this time to prepare once again for the college entrance examination to gain admission to her desired university. Carolina knows that her decision is very risky. In her past life, she mistakenly believed that after failing the exam, she would marry Horus and manage everything at home, although she has her own ambitions and wants to go out and make a name for herself. But Horus does not allow it. Providing for the family is a man's job. What does it have to do with you as a woman? Just stay at home and take good care of mom and the others. Ning is not in good health, and Ning has a pair of younger siblings who are still very young and need someone around. Carolina has no choice but to resign herself to staying at home. She wanted to wait until Dominic and Eva were older before going out, but she happened to get pregnant, and the child was too young to be away from her mother. By the time her son and daughter grew up, Horus had already been promoted and had established a place for himself in the military. As a military spouse, one should naturally be more cautious and not be used as a pawn. Thus, Carolina's desire to build her own career was once again shattered. For 40 years, everyone envied Carolina for being a lifelong housewife, living without worries while her husband held a high position and their children succeeded. But Carolina had countless times felt discontent. Yet under the pressure and scrutiny of everyone, she could only deceive herself. What's wrong with that? Everyone has gone through this, until Horus's funeral. Even though she had been betrayed by her husband for many years, It was she who was blamed by everyone. Carolina finally understood how absurd her past sacrifices and self-deceptions were. No one cares about a lost accessory. In their eyes, she is the obedient and well-behaved daughter of her parents, the dutiful and humble daughter-in-law of Ning, Horus's lifelong wife, and the mother of Dominic and Eva. Everyone only remembers her prefixes, yet they all forget that her name is Carolina. She is Carolina, not anyone's daughter, not anyone's wife, and certainly not anyone's mother. In this life, Carolina does not want to leave any regrets for herself. Wanting to be here, Carolina raised her hand to press against her heart, telling herself, "How much worse can it get?" The train came to a stop. Carolina then got off with the crowd and arrived in South City. Unlike the vibrant and splendid South City in her memories, the South City at this moment was merely a somewhat dilapidated and gray little town. But in Carolina's eyes, this was her brand new beginning. What Carolina didn't expect was that as soon as she stepped out of the train station, she discovered a large hole in her bag, and all the money inside had vanished without a trace. She wanted to call the police, but didn't know where the police station was. She asked passers-by, but in the developing South City, everywhere were people who only spoke the local dialect. Carolina couldn't understand, nor could she make others understand her words. During the inquiries, Carolina almost cried several times, but each time she forced herself to hold back. She tirelessly went from shop to ask, and finally found a shop where they could understand Mandarin. The shop owner was called Grandma Sue, who had lost her husband and had not heard from her children for many years. Running a sewing shop to make a living, Grandma Sue had a loud voice, and her excessively frail body appeared somewhat fierce, causing others to avoid her. After learning that Carolina had her money stolen while looking for work, Grandma Sue stared at Carolina for a long time before speaking in broken Mandarin. "I am too old to bend down, and there is a room that has not been cleaned for a long time. If you clean it up, I will pay you." Carolina quickly agreed, and she followed Grandma Sue through the alley to a small attic. The room that Grandma Sue mentioned is actually a storage room at the stairs. As the door opened, a cloud of dust rushed in, revealing a few dimly lit windows that were small and broken, with various items piled up all around the room. After handing the room over to Carolina, Grandma Sue left directly. Carolina looked at the place in front of her, gritted her teeth, rolled up her sleeves, and began to tidy up. Items were gradually moved out and cleaned, and Carolina would also take the opportunity to fix some of the damaged areas. From morning until evening, Carolina lost track of how long she had been cleaning, until she finally managed to tidy up the entire room. After finishing everything, Carolina couldn't help but collapse on the ground, pounding her hands and feet. But when she looked up, she found Grandma Sue standing at the door, seemingly having been watching her for a long time. Carolina quickly stood up. "Grandma Sue, please take a look at how I tidied up." Grandma Sue glanced around, then suddenly turned her back and said, "I need a helper here. Food and accommodation provided. No salary. If that's the case, then I'll agree." Carolina was stunned for a long time, and it took her a while to react to Grandma Sue's meaning. She was overwhelmed with joy and hurriedly expressed her gratitude. After having dinner with Grandma Sue, Carolina finally managed to return to her room and lie down. The air was still filled with a dampness, and Carolina raised her hand to shield her eyes, the soreness in her limbs making her reluctant to move at all. On the first day in South City, so many unexpected things had happened. Whether it was good or bad, Carolina couldn't quite tell. She lowered her hand but caught sight of the countless stars through the narrow window, shining even more brilliantly in the darkness. As she watched, the soreness in her body seemed to ease a bit. She opened the window, closed her eyes, and let the cool breeze soothe her restlessness. It couldn't get any worse. Carolina, holding on to this thought, Carolina fell into a deep sleep. Early the next morning, Carolina got up and went to Grandma Sue's sewing shop, sorting fabrics, greeting customers, and assisting. Soon, the neighbors nearby all knew that a beautiful young girl had come to work as an assistant in that quirky sewing shop. Grandma Sue's sewing skills are excellent, but her quirky personality makes many people instinctively avoid her. Now that Carolina is here, Everyone has tacitly chosen to let Carolina handle those clothes and requests. Grandma Sue sees everything and sarcastically remarks while operating her sewing machine. "These people really seem to like you a lot." Carolina put down the clothes in her hands and smiled at Grandma Sue. "What good is it to be liked? Isn't it all thanks to Grandma Sue and your craftsmanship? Look how beautiful this is." Grandma Sue remained silent. Carolina half coaxed and half deceived, and finally managed to get Grandma Sue to feign a fierce demeanor. "What are you still doing here? Call someone over." Having stayed with Grandma Sue for half a month, Carolina had also figured out Grandma Sue's stubborn yet soft-hearted nature, making their interactions much more natural. She would even specifically seek out Grandma Sue to learn the South City dialect. Meanwhile, Carolina also took the opportunity to wander around during her free time, finally gaining a preliminary understanding of South City. But what kind of business to do, Carolina couldn't think of at the moment. It wasn't until one time when she was cleaning that she accidentally saw those fallen scraps of cloth, and suddenly an idea popped into her mind. After learning that those scraps of cloth were useless, Carolina collected them, recutting and sewing them into strips to make headbands. Once finished, Carolina took advantage of her break time to specifically go to places like the market to sell them. Those places had a large flow of people, and as a result, the headbands sold extremely well. Looking at the money in hand, Carolina rarely revealed a genuine smile. Whether it is studying or doing business, the money needed is not a small amount. The more money Carolina earns, the more confident she feels. Just as Carolina was excitedly preparing to make a big move, she saw her missing person notice on the television next to the market. Carolina, female, 19 years old. Carolina's blood seemed to freeze in an instant. She thought that after she ran away, besides Lynn's father and Lynn's mother, no one would care. But this missing person notice was clearly written by Horus. Carolina didn't understand why Horus was so determined to cling to her in this lifetime and wouldn't let her go. Could it be that she resents Cashin for invalidating that admission notice? For Evelyn, does Horus really hate himself this much? Her heart felt like it was boiling in a pot of oil, pain and hatred washing over Carolina's entire being. But there was nothing she could do. She could only run awkwardly to a secluded place, letting large drops of tears stream down her cheeks. She cried for a long time, only managing to stop her tears after nightfall. Carolina thought for a long time and finally chose to sell headbands at those more remote intersections. The fewer people there are to interact with, the less one buys. As time goes by, often only one or two can be sold in a day. Carolina felt that perhaps it was her own fault. So she became increasingly diligent in studying styles, going to bed later and later. One day while selling headbands, Carolina couldn't hold on any longer and fell asleep leaning against the wall. But when the sound of footsteps approached, she instinctively woke up. "Hello, what would you like to buy?" At the moment she looked up, Carolina was stunned in place. It was Grandma Sue. She quickly stood up, usually eloquent. This was the first time she didn't know what to say. Grandma Sue didn't say anything, just walked to the other side. Carolina didn't dare to say much, hurriedly packed her things, and followed with her head down. But as they walked, it wasn't in the direction of home. Carolina felt anxious, just about to ask when she saw Grandma Sue stop in her tracks. "Just put it down here." She looked up and found that it was actually a bustling market. Though it wasn't as crowded as the market she had been to before, it was much better than the corners she usually stayed at. Carolina stared blankly at Grandma Sue and quietly asked, "Grandma Sue, aren't you angry?" "Angry?" Grandma Sue turned her back to Carolina and snorted coldly. "Coming back so late every day. I can't even find you. What if one day I die outside, and I wouldn't even know that the helper I was looking for is gone?" Carolina felt a pang in her eyes and couldn't help but rush forward to hug Grandma Sue. Grandma Sue was stunned for a long time but still reached out to hug Carolina back. "I saw that missing person notice. A young girl like you, if she wasn't forced to the brink, wouldn't run so far alone. From now on, you will be my little granddaughter. As time goes by, no one will doubt your identity." Carolina nodded solemnly, holding Grandma Sue tight. Since that day, whenever a customer came to the sewing shop, Grandma Sue would subtly hint at Carolina's identity. The neighbors nearby quickly learned that the new helper girl was actually Grandma Sue's granddaughter. As for before, everyone just thought that Grandma Sue was eccentric, taking out her anger on her son for not returning for many years, and Grandma Sue seemed to genuinely treat Carolina as her granddaughter, beginning to pressure her to learn her sewing and embroidery skills. Carolina was indeed quite talented in this area, but having started too late, she naturally could not meet Grandma Sue's expectations all at once. Grandma Sue was strict in her demands and showed no mercy in her scoldings. The cloth was wet and then dry again. Carolina didn't even know how many times she had cried. For several months, Carolina had to prepare for the college entrance examination while also enduring Grandma Sue's criticisms to learn sewing and embroidery. And she had to find time to sell headbands and the small accessories she made herself. She had no time to rest. Often, she would fall asleep as soon as she touched the bed. The things that had troubled her and kept her awake at night seemed to be gradually fading away. Fortunately, as time went on, everything seemed to be getting better. The progress that had fallen behind was gradually being made up, and Grandma Sue's praises were also increasing little by little. The accessories I made even received some large orders. Time flows away like water, and the days of my dreams seem to be coming closer day by day. In July 1982, it was graduation season, with the sound of cicadas buzzing and the heat waves in the air making it hard to bear. Carolina had just finished taking a group photo with her classmates when she unexpectedly ran into Cashin, who was helping Grandma Sue walk over. She hurriedly stepped forward and took the flowers from Cashin's hands, scolding him. "Why did you bring Grandma out in this hot weather?" Grandma Sue used a handkerchief to wipe Carolina's forehead, speaking softly. "Today is your graduation day. It was my insistence to come, so don't blame Xiao Jin. Let Grandma have a good look at you." Carolina gently hugged Grandma Sue and said, "Graduation isn't really a big deal, but it's so hot these days. Getting heat stroke would be bad. Grandma, you should take care of your health too." This is Carolina's 5th year in South City. Grandma Sue has a quirky personality, yet she is particularly fond of Carolina, treating her as if she were her own granddaughter. Carolina originally planned to apply to Beihua University, but for Grandma Sue, she ultimately decided to apply to Nanheng University, which is on par with Beihua University. Unexpectedly, after finishing the exam, she ran into Cashin, who had come to visit Grandma Sue. It was also at that time Carolina came to know that Grandma Sue was an old acquaintance of Cashin's grandfather. Grandma Sue's children did not go far away and lose contact, but rather sacrificed their lives unexpectedly while on a mission. For so many years, Grandma Sue has been unwilling to believe, convinced that it was just a matter of stubbornness not to come see her, and has refused to associate with others because of it. When Cashin learned that Grandma Sue suddenly had a granddaughter, he was worried that someone had ulterior motives and had come to check. But unexpectedly he encountered Carolina instead. After learning about the connection between the two, Grandma Sue also sighed about fate. In the following years, they had more interactions and gradually became familiar with each other. After the graduation ceremony, Cashin took Carolina to the restaurant that Grandma Sue had booked early. Grandma Sue kept complaining about wasting money, yet her smile couldn't be contained. After they had eaten most of the dishes, Cashin asked Carolina, "You've finished university. What are your plans next? Are you planning to go home for a visit?" Mentioning going home, Carolina seemed a bit uneasy. Since the reform and opening up, South City has developed rapidly. Carolina used some money earned from her headband to start a small studio, which later expanded into a company covering multiple sectors, including clothing and accessories. In these past few years, I have earned quite a bit of money and sent a lot to Lin's father and Lin's mother. Yet I have never returned home. She once sought help to inquire about the situation at home and learned that Horus still visited the Lin family every holiday, which made her lose the courage to go back. Lin's father was so determined to have her marry Horus that going back now might force her into a corner again. She didn't want to go through the trouble of escaping a second time. Thinking of this, Carolina shook her head and said, "No, I don't think so. I plan to take my grandmother to the hospital in North City for a checkup and also discuss a collaboration there to see the market." Hearing that they were going to North City for medical treatment, Grandma Sue immediately became unhappy. "I'm just an old bone. Why waste that money? I'm not going. If you have things to do, just do them well. No need to worry about an old woman like me." Seeing Grandma Sue being stubborn again, Carolina helplessly coaxed her. Grandma, how can that be called wasting money? Besides, haven't you always wanted to go to North City for a visit? Can't we just consider it a trip? Everything else besides you is a small matter, so don't think too much about it. Cashin was helping Grandma Sue with the dishes while advising her. Carolina is right. Just in time. I also need to go to North City, so I'll go with you. Carolina has business to discuss. I'll take you to stroll around North City. Hearing that Cashin was going back to North City, Carolina exclaimed in surprise. Didn't Uncle Song say you had to stay in South City? Cashin waved his hand, saying helplessly, no matter how much he says, it can't compare to the old master's usefulness. You still have to obediently go back. After learning that Cashin was also going to North City, Grandma Sue finally agreed. Carolina still had quite a few things to handle, so she let Cashin take Grandma Sue to North City first, planning to catch up with them later. By the time everything was settled, it had already been half a month. Carolina got off the car with her suitcase and sat quietly on a nearby chair, waiting. Originally, Carolina planned to take Grandma Sue for a stroll in North City, but unfortunately, the news of her bringing Grandma Sue here reached Old Master Song. Old Master Song insisted on inviting Grandma Sue to have dinner with Carolina, who could only agree as she couldn't refuse. Cashin volunteered to pick her up, but unfortunately, he was assigned a task at the last minute. Song the Old Master arranged for someone else. Carolina wanted to refuse, but Song the Old Master insisted, so she had no choice but to comply. Fortunately, she didn't have to wait long. A young man in black ran towards her. Hello, you must be Miss Lin. Carolina quickly stood up and asked gently. You must be Comrade Leonardo. He ruffled his hair and said awkwardly, Miss Lin, Brother Song has already briefed me. Just call me Leo. I'm taking you to Song's house now. As the two were talking and getting into the car, unexpectedly, the moment the door opened, a familiar face appeared before them. Upon recognizing the visitor, Carolina's blood ran cold, and she nearly lost her grip on the suitcase. Leo didn't notice Carolina's unusual reaction and explained, This is our Ning captain. Mr. Song happened to need him for something, so he brought him along. Seeing Carolina remain silent, Leo cautiously asked, Miss Lin, do you know Commander Ning? In her mind, the past life and everything that had happened played out like a slideshow, and the suffocating feeling in her heart nearly made Carolina gasp for breath. She steadied her mind and heard herself speak in a strained voice. I don't know. Let's go. Carolina got into the car, sitting a bit far from Horus. She had thought about the scene of meeting Horus again, whether in the village, at the company, or even a fleeting glance on the busy street. But no matter which scene it was, there was always some space left for her to prepare. It just so happens at this delicate moment, Carolina couldn't quite articulate her feelings. She thought she had grown a lot over the past 5 years and would be able to greet Horus with composure and grace. The truth, however, is that the wounds from her past with Horus ran deeper than she had imagined. So deep that even after 5 years, she still harbored hatred for Horus. Sitting in the driver's seat, Leo noticed the unusual atmosphere, but he stole a glance at Horus, who was sitting there. Horus was always expressionless. After observing for a long time, Leo couldn't discern anything unusual and ultimately had to give up. But the one being remembered, Horus, was not as calm as Leo thought. He knew Carolina did not like him, and when she was not paying attention, he shifted towards the car door. Nevertheless, the faint scent of Carolina still lingered around Horus. Even the white shirt she wore became quite dazzling. He tried his best to restrain his actions, not wanting to appear too concerned and scare Carolina away. For a full 1,873 days, there was not a word from Carolina. 5 years ago, he had been in a state of despair at home for a long time, and with the thought of seeing Carolina, he sent Evelyn to Guangdong for university. Horus even thought that as long as he found Carolina, and Carolina was willing to come back with him, he would take back the admission notice he had given to Evelyn and return it to Carolina. Even if doing so would be unfair to Evelyn, he couldn't care less. He finally realized that he didn't want to, and couldn't afford to lose Carolina. If Carolina wanted to study, Wasn't it enough for him to let her go to school? He still refused to believe that Carolina really didn't like him anymore. On the way to Guangdong, Evelyn chattered a lot. He didn't hear a word. His mind was filled with thoughts about what to say when he saw Carolina. Apologies, admissions of guilt, or perhaps just the same as usual. Horace thought for a long time and finally realized that the only thing he really wanted to say was one sentence. When you finish university, can we have our wedding again? But in the end, he still couldn't bring himself to ask that question. He took Evelyn to Guangdong University, only to be told that the admission notice had already been rendered invalid. This student has already informed us in advance. She cannot enroll due to family reasons and requests to invalidate this admission notice. The staff at the admissions office spoke while casting doubtful glances at them. Where did you get this admission notice? Just a short sentence caused Evelyn to instantly break down. She nearly crumpled the admission notice in her hands and could only plead repeatedly. How is that possible? I did not void this admission notice. Could you please cancel it? This is the university I worked hard to get into. I did not void it. In her urgency, Evelyn even grabbed Horace to help explain. Horace, you must tell him quickly. This admission notice is mine. I did not invalidate this admission notice, so why shouldn't I be allowed to enroll? Horace remained motionless, desperately thinking about why. Carolina, in order to attend university, did not hesitate to tear her relationship with him apart, disregarding Lynn's father and Lynn's mother to escape. How could she possibly choose to invalidate this admission notice? He rushed in front of the staff, suppressing his panic, and asked, did Carolina come to the school to invalidate it herself? To his surprise, the staff said no more, only confirming that it was indeed invalidated by the person herself. The ambiguous attitude made Horace increasingly uneasy. He pushed Evelyn away and recklessly searched everywhere for missing persons. For a full 5 years, the only evidence that Carolina was still doing well was the regular payments made into Lynn's father's account. Horace thought he would never see Carolina again in this lifetime. Yet he did not expect to encounter her under such circumstances, not as impoverished and disheveled as imagined, calm and serene, yet with a hint of vibrant flavor. A Carolina that was more vivid and full of life than he had ever seen. Everything is reminding him of a fact he is most unwilling to admit. After leaving him, Carolina seems to have become better. An inexplicable suffocation felt like a ball of cotton tightly blocking Horace's heart, making even breathing seem difficult. The car suddenly came to a stop, and Leo turned to look back. Miss Lin, Captain Ning, we have arrived. Carolina nodded and then eagerly opened the car door. Horace looked at his empty hands, paused for a moment, and then followed suit to get out of the car. As soon as he saw Carolina, Cashin immediately came forward. Carolina, you're here. Grandma Sue is waiting for you inside. He wanted to say something more, but out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of Horace getting out of the car, and his expression suddenly darkened. Beside him, Leo quickly explained, Brother Song. Song just happened to have something to discuss with Commander Ning, so he came along. Cashin glanced at Carolina and nodded in agreement. If it's someone the old master wants to see, I naturally can't stop it. Carolina, let's go. He shielded Carolina behind him, his lean figure blocking her completely from Horace's view. As a man, Horace naturally sensed Cashin's hostility and protective instincts, but Cashin's defensive attitude clearly indicated how much he knew about the relationship between him and Carolina. What made him even more uneasy was Carolina's attitude. Clearly, Carolina had been so cautious with him just moments ago, yet she appeared unexpectedly relaxed in front of Cashin. He clenched his fists, his thoughts in disarray for a moment. Next to him, Leo was oblivious to Horace's unusual demeanor, gazing at the figures of Cashin and Carolina with a sigh. Brother Song and Miss Lin truly are a perfect match. I heard Miss Lin is still a university student. Hearing this, Horace suddenly stopped in his tracks. Leo was startled and said in a fluster, Captain Ning, I forgot you don't like to hear these things. Sorry, are they together? Horace stared at Cashin's back and asked in a deep voice. Leo was stunned for a moment and took a while to stammer out a reply. Not yet, I suppose. I heard Brother Song hasn't confessed yet, but he's been waiting for that young lady for 5 years. So it should be soon. 5 years? Horace felt a tightness in his heart, instinctively thinking of Carolina and that disappearance 5 years ago. Clearly, the village was so far from the station, with no ox cart or bicycle, yet Carolina managed to catch the train in less than 6 hours. The words of the homeless man echoed in Horace's mind once again. The identity of that strange man from 5 years ago suddenly revealed itself at this moment. He took a deep breath and couldn't help but quicken his pace to catch up with the two. Leo, who was left behind, looked puzzled and muttered, "Isn't Captain Ning usually averse to others discussing personal matters? Why are you taking the initiative to ask this time?" On the other side, Cashin did not appear so calm. He furrowed his brow and said, "It was my oversight. I forgot to ask Leo if he was bringing someone else with him. He didn't do anything to you, did he?" Carolina shook her head, recalling Horace's attitude. "It's nothing. Moreover, 5 years have passed. He probably forgot about what happened back then. By now, he should be with Evelyn. Why would he care about me, the one who ran away from the wedding?" Seeing that Carolina didn't care, Cashin silently swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. He is a man, naturally able to see through Horace's calm exterior. The longing gaze directed at Carolina beneath it. It is like a person who has been in the desert for 7 days and nights suddenly seeing a source of water, filled with fervor. But he does not intend to tell Carolina these things. He does not want Carolina to hate Horace. Hatred often stems from care, and the more one ignores it, the more it indicates that Carolina does not care about that past relationship. How could someone who was abandoned and does not even have a marriage certificate compete with him? Thinking of this, Cashin felt even happier, and the frustration from just encountering Horace dissipated considerably. Song Old Master and Grandma Sue were already waiting in the living room, and when they saw Cashin's song bringing Carolina in, their faces lit up with joy. "So this is Carolina, right?" Song Old Master walked up to Carolina, looking happily at Grandma Sue beside him. "I must say, after raising you for a few years, you do resemble each other quite a bit." Carolina pulled out the gifts she had prepared long ago. "Grandpa Song, this is a small gift I brought for you. It's not anything valuable. I hope you won't mind. If he dislikes it, then I'll take it." Grandma Sue pretended to snatch it. Old Master Song quickly took it and said, "Why are you still acting like a bandit from back in the day? What belongs to Carolina should naturally be kept." While speaking, Old Master Song also noticed Horace, who was catching up, and immediately called out, "By the way, I almost forgot there are still some matters to handle. Xiao Jin, you take Carolina and the others to the side hall and entertain them well. I'll be there shortly." Cashin nodded, leading Grandma Sue and Carolina to the other side. As she passed Horace, Carolina seemed to see Horace's hand reaching out towards her, but it was only for a moment. When she looked closely, she found that Horace's hand was still resting calmly by his side. She didn't take this little incident to heart and soon forgot about it. About half an hour later, Old Master Song finished his business, called them over to chat, and invited Carolina to join Grandma Sue for dinner. Grandma Sue and Old Master Song were comrades in arms, and after many years apart, they had endless things to talk about. Carolina followed Cashin and listened to many past stories. Even when they spoke excitedly, she had to drink a few glasses to show her support. By the time they finished eating and drinking, it was already dark outside. Old Master Song still wanted Grandma Sue and Carolina to stay, but both were not accustomed to staying overnight, so they declined. Since they were unwilling to stay, Old Master Song instructed Cashin to take them back to the inn. Grandma Sue, having rarely drunk, began to talk more, holding Carolina's hand and chattering incessantly. Carolina was at a loss for words and could only comfort Grandma Sue. All right, I will listen to you. Grandma, let's just sit here and we'll sleep later." Cashin rarely saw Carolina in such a motherly way, and couldn't help but laugh. "You really have a good relationship with Grandma Sue." As night deepens, the lights on both sides of the street begin to glow. Pedestrians come and go, and vehicles rush by, creating a lively scene. The car stopped. Cashin helped Carolina assist Grandma Sue out. "Just as I was about to enter the inn, I suddenly saw Horace standing to the side. Carolina didn't want to pay Horace any attention and turned her head to speak to Cashin. Don't mind him. Just take Grandma Sue upstairs to rest. If he wants to stand here, let him stand. Cashin shook his head and said softly, his presence here is only a hindrance to you. I'll go send him away. You take Grandma Sue to rest first. After saying this, Cashin directly waved to Colvian's staff, gave them some money, and asked them to help Carolina assist Grandma Sue upstairs to rest. Carolina agreed with Cashin's insistence, nodding in response, and she didn't forget to remind him, be careful. If it doesn't make sense, just ignore it. Cashin stood in place, watching Carolina enter the inn, and soon after, the room's light turned on. He lowered his head and immediately saw Horace walking towards him. Captain Ning is doing well. Why are you still doing surveillance? Horace Ning looked up, glancing at the room that had just lit up. This is the best inn in North City. I know you would book a room here without needing to follow me. Upon hearing this, Cashin mocked. No wonder Carolina hasn't wanted to mention you in recent years. In your eyes, does she only deserve to depend on others, without any autonomy? The inn was found by Carolina, and it was also Carolina who paid for it. When buried matters are suddenly exposed, Horace's breathing became noticeably rapid. Cashin, how long have you known her? What gives you the right to act like you understand her so well? I've known her for a full 20 years. What are you even worth? Horace has always been calm and taciturn. Apart from that time with the homeless man, this is the second time he has impulsively spoken such rude words. Seeing Horace in a fit of rage, Cashin snorted coldly. What does 20 years matter? 20 years were nothing but forced. Making Carolina hold a wedding with you that was merely a formality. Oh right. The marriage application wasn't even submitted. There's no official recognition. Cashin rarely showed a hint of smugness, infuriating Horace so much that he momentarily lost his mind and directly grabbed Cashin by the collar. If it weren't for you, Carolina would have long been my wife. Stop it! A scolding voice came from not far away. Carolina ran over, panting, and forcefully pulled Horace's hand away, pushing him back. Horace, I haven't been in a relationship with you for 5 years. What are you still making a fuss about? Carolina warily watched Horace, not forgetting to stand in front of Cashin, afraid he would make any harmful move. Horace looked at Carolina's protective stance, a hint of hurt flashing in his eyes. He took a deep breath, suppressing his displeasure as he asked, Carolina, we are married. It was he who deceived you, taking you away and keeping us apart for a full 5 years. Horace, wake up! Carolina coldly stared at Horace, speaking without hesitation. Cashin didn't deceive me, nor did he abduct me. From beginning to end, it was my choice, and I even asked him to take me away. I couldn't have asked for anything more than to be apart from you. As for what you call marriage, without a marriage certificate, the law will not recognize it. If you continue to harass me, don't blame me for calling the police. After saying this, Carolina grabbed Cashin's hand and walked away in the other direction. Horace instinctively wanted to follow, but the next second he stopped in his tracks. He stood there, watching helplessly as the two figures disappeared from sight. Deep down, the bitterness and astringency intertwine, and the pain spreads uncontrollably through my limbs. Horace doesn't understand. Carolina, was that push just now really that heavy? Otherwise, how could it make it so difficult for him to even breathe? Horace stood in place for a long time, long enough for the streetlights to dim significantly and for the cars on the street to disappear, before he slowly began to walk back. When he reached the bottom of the rental building, the long-awaited Evelyn suddenly jumped out. Horace, why did you take so long to come back? Is something wrong? Horace looked at Evelyn for a long time, yet he still didn't mention the encounter with Carolina today. It's nothing. How have you prepared for this exam? Initially, the admission notice was invalid, so Evelyn couldn't attend university and had to return to the village. Horace went to great lengths to give Evelyn a chance to return to the city. However, when Evelyn's mother saw that Evelyn had not been admitted to university, she wanted to marry Evelyn someone, using the bride price to marry off Evelyn's brother. Evelyn was desperate. and seeing that her mother was unyielding, she sought out Horus. Originally, Horus wanted to pay for the betrothal gifts himself, but unexpectedly, her mother was determined to marry Evelyn off. Left with no choice, Evelyn went to find Horus again. Horus, I don't want to get married. I want to go to university. Why don't you marry me? I promise I won't cause any trouble and will study hard to prepare for the college entrance examination. She thought Horus would agree, but to her surprise, the usually accommodating Horus refused her. My wife is Carolina. I cannot marry you. But she ran away. Evelyn clutched Horus's arm almost frantically, pleading, moreover, you don't have a marriage certificate, so you can't be considered a couple. Horus, you promised my father that you would take good care of me. Are you going to breach the contract? Horus did not breach the contract. He used all his savings to give Evelyn 5 more years. As long as Evelyn could get into university within those 5 years, her mother would not force her to marry. 5 years have passed, and this is the last chance. Evelyn naturally understood Horus what this meant. She paused, her expression frustrated. Horus, is this all we can talk about between us? A sudden wave of exhaustion washed over him. Horus raised his hand to press against his brow. It's getting late. You should rest early. I'm tired. I'm going to sleep. He ignored Evelyn's entanglement and directly walked upstairs. Evelyn watched Horus's back and unconsciously bit her lip. Since Carolina left 5 years ago, Horus's attitude towards her has changed significantly. If it weren't for her still using their past kindness to blackmail him, Horus would have probably stopped caring about her long ago. She originally thought that after 5 years, even the hardest heart would be softened by her. I didn't expect Horus to be as wooden as a log, refusing to agree, and today he was even colder towards her. By intuition, Evelyn always felt that Horus must have encountered something today. After pulling Cashin into the inn, Carolina immediately let go. Looking apologetically at Cashin, I'm sorry for bothering you just now. Cashin felt the warmth that had just come from his arm, and smiled slightly as he placed his hand behind his back. That sounds too formal. Horus seems to still have feelings for you. I'll stay by your side during this time. Carolina shook her head and said helplessly, you rarely take a vacation. How can you waste your time on me? Moreover, you have already helped me a lot over the past few years. I can't trouble you any further. Carolina spoke these words sincerely. Her gaze towards Cashin was as clear as a lake, devoid of any hint of reluctance. As she spoke, Cashin was suddenly lost in thought. Is something wrong? Noticing Cashin's daze, Carolina asked curiously. Cashin awoke suddenly, unconsciously smiling, then reached out to ruffle Carolina's hair. I don't think there's any trouble. Moreover, Grandma Sue is an old friend of the old master, so I should take good care of her. Aren't we going to the hospital tomorrow? Just wait for me patiently. After saying that, without giving Carolina a chance to refuse, Cashin turned and quickly left. Looking as if he was fleeing in a hurry, Carolina always felt that something was off, but she couldn't grasp her thoughts at the moment. She climbed the stairs and returned to the room, only to find Grandma Sue standing by the window. Grandma, why aren't you asleep yet? Carolina quickly walked over and followed Grandma Sue's gaze, just in time to see Cashin looking back 3 times. It's just that Grandma's position is a bit concealed. Cashin shouldn't be able to see her direction. Carolina, is that young man today the one who almost married you? Grandma Sue held Carolina's hand and asked seriously. Carolina took a deep breath, still unable to bear continuing to hide, and then nodded. I never expected that after 5 years, I would run into him in North City, but I have already made it clear to him, so there shouldn't be any more entanglements. Grandma Sue raised her hand to gently stroke Carolina's face and said softly, Carolina, you know too little about men. He will not give up. By the way, I still have something to ask you. What do you really think about Xiao Jin? Carolina was somewhat confused and grasped Grandma Sue's hand. What does this have to do with him? Horus is Horus, and I can handle the matters between us. No need for his help. Seeing Carolina looking so clueless, Grandma Sue felt frustrated. Who said Horus did? Can't you see that Cashin has a special attitude towards you? Ordinary friends wouldn't act like this. Seeing Carolina stunned, Grandma Sue patted her hand. Grandma is tired. I'm going to sleep now. You should think about it carefully. Carolina paused for a moment, instinctively wanting to help Grandma Sue, but Grandma Sue pointed out the window, indicating that she didn't need to worry about her. Carolina turned around in confusion, only to find Cashin had stopped moving at some point, standing still and gazing intently in her direction. Although she couldn't clearly see Cashin's expression from a distance, Carolina could sense that he was smiling at her, and she couldn't help but instinctively smile back. It was at this moment that Grandma Sue's words echoed in my ears once again. Between men and women, if not ordinary friends, what other kind of friends could there be? Since her rebirth, Carolina has been on edge almost every moment. She fears being forced back into marriage, fears that all her struggles will amount to nothing, and is even more afraid that everything since her rebirth has been just a dream. Occasionally Carolina would ask herself what exactly she was afraid of. She had asked herself many times, and each time the answer she could come up with was simply that she did not want to lose herself. She had had enough of a past life with no self-worth, where she gave everything and was still despised by everyone. It was precisely because of this that she had never considered marriage. Now when Grandma Sue asked her, she felt a bit lost. Her thoughts were in disarray, and even the dreams she had became a chaotic mess. It felt as if she were trapped in a quagmire, stepping deep and shallow, unsure of when she would step into a deep pit and be completely engulfed by the mud. In a state of near suffocation, she recalled an old memory. It was a month before her college entrance examination when she began to frequently have nightmares. In her dreams, she would always think of matters from her past life, the torment from her mother, the rudeness of her siblings, and various chaotic trivialities, all entwining around Carolina like creeping vines, leaving her no time to attend to anything else. As time passed, the vines turned into silk threads, manipulating her, who was exhausted from running around, into a puppet. The silk threads severed her body, making her no longer exquisite and beautiful, no longer as composed as she once was. Yet everyone only blamed her for not being diligent enough, not being resolute enough, while no one cast a glance at the true culprits, the silk threads. The entanglement of these nightmares caused Carolina to lose weight drastically, and her spirit also became quite listless. It was at this moment that Cashin suddenly appeared before her with a bunch of morning glories. I heard from others that this flower has magic and can drive away nightmares for a good sleep. Just right for you. Carolina looked at the morning glory still glistening with dew and couldn't help but smile. Aren't you a materialist warrior? Be careful with this flower, or Grandpa Song will scold you. Who would have thought Cashin would suddenly pull out a small bag and smile at Carolina? The materialist warrior naturally prepared medicine for you. Don't worry. I asked the doctor and there are no side effects. It won't affect your studies. As for these morning glories, let's treat them as idealists for once, as materialist warriors. Anyway, it's not like I'm going to fuss about it. Cashin shook the flowers while holding them up in front of Carolina. Carolina helplessly accepted them, wanting to pay but was refused by Cashin. Cashin only had 7 days of vacation, and during those 7 days, he brought her fresh morning glories every day. Although Carolina smiled at Cashin for believing this, she still specially bought a small vase to put the morning glories in. Whether it was the medicine or the morning glories, Carolina indeed no longer had nightmares and could sleep soundly. She thought that after 7 days, there would be no more morning glories. But to her surprise, on the 8th day, a child appeared holding a morning glory and said to her earnestly, "This is Song Brother's gift for Lin's sister." Carolina wanted to refuse, but the child said earnestly, "Song Brother helped my grandfather pay for the medical expenses. He said it was a reward for me sending you flowers every day. If you don't accept it, he won't pay." After being told this, Carolina could only accept it. Later, when she called to ask Cashin about it, Cashin casually replied, "That child has a strong sense of pride. Accepting something for free doesn't feel secure to him. Isn't this a way to have the best of both worlds? Lin's sister, can you really bear to refuse a child?" The last sentence mimicked the child's tone, making Carolina unable to help but laugh. But after her college entrance examination, she realized that the place with morning glories in South City was near the child's home. Yet it was over 10 kilometers away from Cashin's place. The child only needed an hour to get to her. But Cashin needed 3 hours. Those 7 days were when he got up before dawn every day to pick morning glories, just to deliver the earliest, freshest, and most beautiful morning glories to her. The morning glory from a few years ago seems to have played a role once again in some mysterious way. The chaotic thoughts faded away, and a touch of tranquil purple and white gradually filled the entire dream, allowing Carolina to slowly drift into sleep. For several consecutive days, Horus did not appear before Carolina again. While Carolina was busy with company matters, she also took Grandma Sue for a checkup and had a comprehensive examination done. Fortunately, after the doctor examined her, he said that Grandma Sue was simply too old and had overexerted herself. As long as she rested well, there would be no major issues. When leaving the hospital, Grandma Sue was still nagging. "I told you it's nothing serious. Isn't this just wasting money? In this day and age, it's not easy to earn money. Why should a young girl not take care of herself and spend it on me, an old woman?" Cashin helped Grandma Sue and spoke up. "Grandma Sue, please don't worry about money. No matter what, it won't make you short of that little bit." Just as she was about to get in the car, a familiar voice suddenly came from not far away. "Carolina." Hearing this, Carolina shuddered. She turned around and immediately saw Lynn's father and Lynn's mother beside Horus. In an instant of clarity, Lynn's mother quickly rushed over, tears in her eyes as she spoke. "Carolina, is it really you? Let me take a good look at you, dear." Carolina seemed a bit at a loss. She tried to steady her voice and said, "Mom, how did you and Dad get here? If we hadn't come, would you have planned to never come back?" Lynn's father angrily walked over. His gaze towards Cashin was filled with suspicion. "I've heard from Horus that it was you who took away Carolina, right? Do you know that I can call the police?" Lynn's mother quickly grabbed Lynn's father and scolded. "What are you talking about? Who was it that shouted about regretting driving Carolina away back then? Now that we've finally found Carolina, do you really want to drive her away again?" Lynn's father glared at Lynn's mother and said angrily, "At that time, I thought something unfortunate had happened to her and that she was being forced. But in the end, it was her own impulsiveness that made her run away, and she was even flirting with other men. In the past, she would have been punished severely for that. Have you said enough?" Grandma Sue raised her voice, her eyes filled with anger as she looked at Lynn's father. "You drove your own daughter away, yet blame her for everything. After 5 years, all you can do as a father is criticize? Have you ever asked her how hard it is for a young girl to survive out there? How much suffering she has endured?" Lynn's father was taken aback, then scolded. "So what? Isn't this just her asking for trouble? She deserves it." Seeing Grandma Sue about to get angry again, Carolina quickly pressed down on Grandma Sue's hand and took a deep breath. "Right. It's me who suffers. But even if I suffer the most outside, I won't listen to your arrangement to go back and marry Horus. In your eyes, a daughter who can't marry Horus is no different from being dead, right?" Slap. Almost the moment the words were spoken, Lynn's father raised his hand and slapped Carolina hard. Everyone present was stunned, and even Lynn's father looked at his hand in disbelief. "Carolina." Cashin immediately looked at Carolina's face, feeling heartbroken. "I will take you to find a doctor." Carolina stopped Cashin, holding back her tears, and said, "No need. I will bear this slap. Since he likes Horus so much, then he might as well recognize Horus as his son and not want me as his daughter. Let me make this clear. I will not go back, and I will definitely not marry Horus. I will give you every penny that is due, but at other times, just consider me as if I have died." After saying this, Carolina directly took Grandma Sue into the car. Cashin looked pale, staring at Lynn's father and Lynn's mother. "Uncle and aunt, if you have even a shred of affection for Carolina, why not try to understand what she has gone through in the past? If you insist on being stubborn, then I believe that Carolina's decision to leave will be the most correct decision she has ever made in her life." Having said what needed to be said, Cashin no longer lingered and turned directly to get into the car. After this commotion, Carolina still agreed to Cashin's advice and temporarily moved Grandma Sue into the Song family's home. Who would have thought that Lin's father would find out about Cashin's identity from somewhere, causing a huge uproar that alarmed Old Master Song. Old Master Song was furious, having been labeled as someone who condoned his grandson's deceit against an innocent girl, despite having lived a virtuous life. But after Bruno revealed everything, Old Master Song fell silent for a long time before taking the initiative to ask Carolina, "Carolina, do you want me to step in and send them away?" Carolina shook her head and spoke, "No need. I will handle it myself." Even so, Old Master Song was worried that Lin's father would imprison Carolina again, so he simply invited them all to the reception room of the Song family. After 5 years, this was the first time Carolina calmly met Horace, Evelyn, and Lin's father and Lin's mother again. A group of people sat together. Song, the old master, spoke first. 5 years have passed. In order to prevent you from not understanding your daughter, why not take a look at these things first? An album was brought up, and when opened, it turned out to be Carolina's bits and pieces from the past 5 years. From selling headbands, learning embroidery, staying up late to prepare for exams, to gradually setting up a small studio, receiving admission notices, and winning awards. In the photos, Carolina never seemed to have a moment of rest. She appeared to be busy every single moment, yet her face always carried a spirited demeanor, vibrant and full of life. With the former Carolina, it seems like they are completely different people. Carolina subconsciously looked at Cashin, only to see him smile reassuringly at her. Grandma Sue also spoke up from the side. "The first time I met Carolina, she had just arrived in South City, couldn't speak the local dialect, and had her money stolen. A young girl, unfamiliar with the place, unable to communicate. The difficulties she faced are beyond my words. I said I could lend her money to go back, but she refused. She told me she had escaped with her life, and even if she died out there, she would not go back. Are you all just forcing her to marry Horus, without asking her why she doesn't want to?" Lin's father let out a heavy sigh and spoke. "What else could it be? Isn't it just that she's proud and thinks she's too good for Horus? She should take a look around. Who in the 10 miles and 8 townships is better than Horus? As her parents, how could we possibly harm her?" Cashin asked. "So in your eyes, Uncle Lin, your daughter is just such a lowly person? She doesn't deserve better. It's not worth studying. It's not worth working. It's not worth living according to one's own wishes. In your eyes, does her value only qualify her to be a woman who manages household chores, cooks, and cleans?" Lin's father suddenly stood up and shouted angrily, "Does my daughter really need you to say this? Besides, which daughter hasn't gone through this? Aren't they all doing just fine and happy? Then why don't you ask if mom is happy?" Carolina also stood up, meeting Lin's father's gaze. "She has been the good woman in your eyes for decades. Why don't you ask her if she's happy? I'm glad I've spent decades locked up at home doing laundry, cooking, sewing, and cleaning. I'm glad that despite having learned so many skills, in your eyes, I'm still just a useless woman who only asks for money." Lin's father was even angrier. He slammed the table and said, "Why isn't she happy? Not having to work and not worrying about food and clothing. What's wrong with doing a little bit of work? If she doesn't do it, does that mean I, a big man, have to do it? I'm not happy." A powerful voice interrupted Lin's father's words. He was stunned for a moment and turned to look at Lin's mother, who had stood up he didn't know when. "Carolina, on the day she left, I saw her. I personally let her go and even concealed her whereabouts. Carolina is right. I am not happy. Without you, I can still support myself with my own hands and feet, and others will even praise me for being capable. You can marry me, yet you think I do nothing all day but eat and drink at home. You work hard to earn money, while I take care of social obligations, do the laundry, cook, clean inside and out, and look after the elders. Where is that not tiring? On what basis do you criticize me like this?" Lin's mother, as she spoke, tears began to fall unconsciously. She took a deep breath and said, "I'll say this here, if anyone forces Carolina to marry Horus, even if it costs me my life, I won't let the person who says this go. I may not have lived well in this life, but my daughter cannot be like this. She can get into university and graduate smoothly. And she can also start her own business and make money. My daughter is stronger than a group of men. Why should she be forced to give up everything? After saying this, Lin's mother walked step by step to Carolina, unhesitatingly protecting her as a mother, conducting a protection that was 25 years overdue. Horace got up and hurriedly said, "I didn't let Carolina give up everything, but you are the one who took my admission notice." Carolina stared at Horace and suddenly asked, "Horace, I have a question for you. Speak with your conscience. That time on the hillside, did you really think I pushed Evelyn down?" Hearing this, Evelyn unconsciously looked at Horace, her heart tightening even more. Seeing Horace remain silent, Carolina couldn't help but mockingly laugh. "You see, you know it's not true, Horace. You think I am heartless, but the most heartless and selfish one is actually you. You clearly like me, but because this marriage was forced upon you by your mother, you refuse to acknowledge your feelings and blame everything on me. It was you who neglected and belittled me, and when I wanted to cancel the engagement, you were unwilling and even schemed to force me. You know very well that I didn't push Evelyn, but to make me stay, you insisted that I did push Evelyn. This way, you can logically take away my admission notice. On one hand, you repay a favor, and on the other hand, you prevent me from escaping your control. You keep saying you respect me, yet you want me to tolerate Evelyn because of your father's kindness to you. But I am an independent person, not your appendage. What right do you have to use your kindness to bind me?" Horace wanted to argue, but he opened his mouth and for a moment didn't know what to say. Carolina took a deep breath and spoke. "The words have come to this. If you still want to continue this commotion, if I could escape once, I can do it a second time. As long as I am willing, I can endure until you die." The resolute words made Lin's father instantly appear much older. He took a few steps back, fell into the chair, and finally closed his eyes. "You're not wrong. The favor is my business. It has nothing to do with you mother and daughter. Since you are unwilling, then let it be." As the farce finally came to an end, Horace wanted to say something more, but Evelyn shouted for Horace to leave. As she passed by Carolina, she heard a soft apology. This apology, Carolina waited for decades, for 2 lifetimes. Now hearing it, her heart stirred not a single ripple. Lin's father and Lin's mother wanted to go back, but old Master Song insisted they play in North City first. Carolina stood under the eaves, gazing at the birds flying in the trees, lost in thought. Cashin came to her side and curiously asked, "What are you looking at?" Meeting Cashin's gaze, Carolina suddenly smiled and said, "I think this yard looks a bit empty. Do you think we should plant some flowers? Let's plant morning glories." Cashin seemed to be suddenly enchanted, stammering, Okay. Seeing Cashin like this, Carolina found it even more amusing and leaned closer to his eyes. "How long does it take to grow?" The almost suggestive words made Cashin immediately understand what she meant. He carefully took Carolina's hand and said earnestly, "As long as you are willing, a lifetime is also possible."